Hi, my name is Matthew Blackman. Today is February 28th, 2026. This is my week 2 assignment for FTH 212 striker fired pistols. Okay, so first things first, this is my completed layout here. I have the components organized somewhat in their functional groupings. And this is everything we're going to need to talk about and assemble our PSA dagger today. So let me get back to you with step 2. So for step 2, we're going to be talking about 6 different components and then their function. So the first component I chose to talk about is the slide. The slide houses the striker assembly and the extractor, and it contains the pressure during firing. Its primary role is to reciprocate during recoil and perform most of the cycle of operations. The slide moves, rearward once the primer ignites. It extracts and ejects the spent casing, and then it returns forward to chamber the next round. The next component I'm going to be talking about is the barrel. The barrel directs the projectile and contains the chamber pressure. It locks into the slide when the firearm is in battery. During the firing phase, the barrel and slide move rearward together briefly before unlocking into the locking block, and it allows extraction and ejection to occur. The third component I'm going to be talking about is the guide rod. Because it's currently unassembled, it is normally part of the recoil assembly. The purpose of the guide rod is to provide an alignment tool essentially for the recoil spring to function on. And it ensures it compresses and expands in a straight movement or path. Within the cycle of operations, the guide rod supports the recoil spring as it moves rearward with the slide. The next item I'm going to be talking about is the striker. In the striker fire system, like a Glock or the PSA dagger, the striker is partially tensioned by slide movement and fully tensioned during the trigger press. When released, it travels forward and impacts the primer during the firing stage of the cycle of operations. Okay, the fifth component I'm going to be talking about is the trigger bar. The trigger bar transfers the squeeze of the trigger to the striker mechanism. It draws the tension and then drops off the engagement surface, allowing the striker to release. It also plays a role in resetting after slide reciprocates. And the last component I'm going to be talking about is the locking block. The locking block interfaces with the barrel's cam surfaces and controls barrel tilt during recoil. It also ensures proper lockup when the firearm is in battery and guides the slide as it goes rearward. Okay, so for step 3, we're going to be talking about the critical dimensions and failure. At first, I was kind of confused about what this was talking about, but the instructor gave some guidance in one of the announcements. So I think for the most part, I get what we are trying to break down here. So first, I'm going to be starting with the slide. The critical dimensions on the slide include the rails and the breech face geometry. If the rail tolerances are out of specification, it could cause excessive play like wobble side to side or binding. And over time, I've seen normal wear appear in the finishes on the slide just because it's going to wear as it's going back and forth across the rails, but I've never seen an actual problem with it. Next, we're going to be talking about the barrel. Critical dimensions include the chamber depth, the locking surfaces, and the feed ramp geometry. Improper dimensions could affect headspace or feeding reliability. Normally wear typically appears right here on the barrel hood where there's actually already wear on this. I'm not sure if they test fit it or something, but there's already wear here. So that's a good example right there. And then next, the guide rod. For the guide rod, really what I could think is the, if the guide rod is straight, if it's bent or even undersized if you have the wrong guide rod, it could cause inconsistent spring alignment and some bad slide movement. And potential failures could include, binding during slide travel or uneven compression with the spring. Under just normal use with the gun, it will wear. It is a wear item, but for the most part, light surface polishing where it contacts the spring in the slide is all it's going to do. Next, we're going to be talking about the striker. Critical dimensions include the striker tip and engagement surfaces. and excessive wear could lead to light primer strikes or inconsistent ignition. The next item we're going to be talking about is the trigger bar. The engagement surfaces where the trigger bar interface with the striker, and critical excessive wear could result into like failure to reset or an inconsistent trigger break. Okay, and lastly, we're going to be talking about the locking block, and critical dimensions for this are obviously going to be the pinholes. They must fit properly inside the frame. That would cause a bunch of issues, and also the rail surfaces that the slide runs across must be correct. And that's going to be it. We're going to be moving on to step 4. Step 4, we're going to be discussing the training a gunsmith should undergo to avoid causing serious damage to the components. And then we're going to look at additional components that interact with the 6 components we talked about earlier. And then we're going to look at one of those components and identify how much time a gunsmith should take to replace that component, and if there are any specialty tools that will need to be used. So a gunsmith working on these components should first and foremost have some safety training and a good understanding of striker-fired systems, just again for safety. Most likely he's going to need precision measurement tools like calipers, gauges, which are going to be important for verifying tolerances. Improper fitting or forcing components into place could damage engagement surfaces or compromise safe function. And we're going to be talking about component interaction now. The slide interacts directly with the barrel during locking up. As you can see, just a quick example, you can see when the barrel actually locks up into the slide. The guide rod supports the recoil spring and interacts with the slide during reciprocation, of course. The trigger bar interferes, it interfaces with the striker to control release, and the locking block guides the barrel movement during unlocking. And then replacement, what I chose to talk about is the guide rod, specifically not just the assembly, not the whole thing together, but if you, for some reason, needed to replace the guide rod, for a component like the guide rod, replacement is very straightforward. It doesn't really require any like fitting or anything, and should be less than a 10-minute job in total for someone that's got the experience in it. Shouldn't require any specialty tools either, so very straightforward, easy job. Next, I'll get back to you with step 5. Okay, so right now we're on to step 5. I'm showing you the before assembly of the PSA dagger. When we get back, we're going to be going through the cycle of operations and doing a function check. So I'll be back whenever this is a complete firearm. Okay, so now we have a complete, fully functional firearm. Going to show that it's clear. There is no live ammunition in my workspace. There is no magazine inserted. There is no round in the chamber. I do have 3 dummy rounds loaded up for the example, and the first thing is we're going to be going over the 8 steps of the cycle of operations. So I'm going to be inserting the dummy rounds into the firearm, and then we're going to start with feeding. So as the slide moves forward, it picks up a round from the magazine. The round enters the chamber, and the barrel locks into the slide. Then firing, the trigger releases the striker, impacting the primer. And unlocking happens when the barrel tilts downward as the slide moves to the rear. The ejector pulls the casing from the chamber. The casing contacts the ejector and exits the injection port like so. And then cocking happens when the rearward slide movement retensions the striker for the next shot. So that was the cycle of operations. I'm going to reload this and get back to you when we're going to do the function check. Okay, so again, no live ammo in my workspace, and the last part of this project is we are going to be doing a function check. So first things first, we're going to take our firearm and take our 3 dummy rounds loaded up in our magazine, and we're going to chamber one of those. So now that it is chambered, we are going to just make sure that our trigger safety is working and the trigger will not pull, and it will not. Just for extra, I'm going to push down on the front of the slide, push down on the rear, kind of wiggle it around, make sure that striker does not get released for any reason. You can see that our barrel is locked. Everything fits together Magazine is okay. So now we're going to pull the trigger. Heard it go off. Okay. Now we're going to reset it while holding the trigger down. Chamber another round. The trigger resets. Pull the trigger again. Okay. I'm going to take my finger off the trigger and then chamber another round with my trigger finger off. Another round is chambered. Pull the trigger. And then should lock back. All right. Firearm seems to be functioning completely fine. And that was going to be my week 2 assignment for FTH 212 striker fired pistols.